Hello, everyone. We're the Anthropomorphic Robotic Arm Group, and I'm Patrick.
Shivani.
Shan.
And our goals and objectives are to create a robotic arm that would basically have all the same capabilities as a regular biological human arm. This includes the strength, dexterity, endurance, all those types of factors. And then to do so, we decided to try to mimic the biological components with artificial materials that exist, because material science seems to be a great resource, so we decided to try to use that.
For summer one, we mainly focused on researching the artificial muscles, what material to use, how they contract, or how they relax, or how to coil them. So through our research, we found that the material called linear low-density polyethylene would be the best one to use as our artificial muscles, because they contract about 23% at 90 degrees Celsius. And this is the setup we used to coil the fibers that we have. We would use a drill, 2 paper clips, some hanging mass, and obviously the fibers themselves. As you see here, these two are the pictures of one of the coiling processes. The clear one is the nylon one, and this is ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Although we are using the linear low density polyethylene, which we don't have right now because it's not available in a filament form. So we would have to extrude one, and this is the GIU that we started working on in summer one, and this is the bone structure. Obviously, we'll be adding the muscles and the rest of the components as we go.
So in order for the filament to actually coil and actuate, we need to apply a heat source to it. So we concluded that using an electrical heat source would probably be the best option in the long run. So during summer 2, we experimented and tested out various ways onto how we can actually get the electricity to travel through the filament. And so our first test, we started with an acrylic paint and charcoal mixture. The charcoal was crushed up into a powder and then mixed in. However, this proved to be too brittle for our use and is impractical. As you can see from the top photo, there's quite a lot of breakage to it, so that can't possibly conduct electricity all the way through. So we tested copper wire as well. Copper wire, we know that it does conduct, and so we wrapped around the filament and applied a voltage to it. However, the copper wire was actually too low of a resistance to get into the heat source that we would want, the heat we would want, which is around 200 degrees Celsius. So we'll be doing more tests with nichrome wire, which will actually heat up to that amount.
So now that we know how the muscle will contract, the question is, how will we cool it down? How will it relax? So this is a diagram we've designed to show how the cooling system will work. As you see, this tiny gray circles are the muscles, and this is the front cross-sectional view of the muscles themselves. This is the insulation that is used to insulate all of the muscles, and inside the inner black little circle is a porous tubing that's filled with cool air that will allow the air to escape from the tube and cool down the muscles, and eventually the hot air can escape from the vent from the insulation.
So to actually do all that, we decided to use soaker hoses. These are regular drip irrigation hosing available everywhere. You can buy it from the store. It has very small holes that allow water to soak through the hose. That's why they're called soaker hoses. And to get the air flowing through it, actually that's a picture of air flowing through a soaker hose. We're decided to use an air pump, likely diaphragm pump, because it pumps a lot more air than others. And the reason it's going to be a micro air pump is because we're trying to make the system self-contained, so we don't need to have multiple other components that are outside of the arm that would help power it. And then for the outer insulation hosing, the hose will have 2 factors. It's going to insulate the heat soften the wires so that the wires don't actually heat up other muscles while they're hot. And it will also have holes in one direction to allow for the hot air that we're using to cool the air that becomes hot when it cools the muscles to escape. And for that, we decided to use sprinkler hose. Those basically do those exact same things, and they're more commercially available, so we don't have to actually make them ourselves.
So now onto the skeletal material. As we mentioned in the previous presentation, we'll be 3D printing the bones, and these are some of the properties we considered while picking the right filament. And after the research, we found that these two filaments can be used, we could ideally use for the purpose. Number one is the PEEK filament, and it is in fact actually used in medical applications. There have been examples of skull implants and other bone replacements that are made out of PEEK. And the greatest points are it's very strong, and it can serve at a maximum temperature of 249 degrees Celsius. However, it is very costly, and it's very hard to bend. And our other option is polycarbonate. It has less strength than the PEEK. However, it's more flexible and elongates more than the PEEK, and it's much less cheaper. And the extruder temperature is also low. However, that still cannot be done using the printers available here.
All right, so to connect the bones together, cartilage is one of the main components. Cartilage is usually the soft material in between bones that help them to smoothly glide across from each other without rubbing and causing friction and wear on the bones themselves. We discovered that there are hydrogels that have been developed that seem to mimic the properties of cartilage very well. However, they're still in the process of being researched, and they're not really commercially available. They also require water, which we don't have in our system. So we decided to use what's been clinically used for decades, which is ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene. This is used in hip implants and knee implants, and some elbow implants as well. And so yeah, it's been used for decades. It's proven to work. And then for the ligaments, we found that the ligaments aren't really usually implanted because they tend to grow by themselves, so there's no real need for artificial ligaments. However, for sports medicine, the ligaments don't really have time to grow before the athlete has to be back on the field. So they tend to use tendon grafts. They use some of the tendons as ligaments because they share many of the similar properties. However, when that's not possible, they use this material, PET for short, I can't pronounce the name, as scaffolding for the regrowth of the ligaments, and it serves as temporary ligaments, and that's the material we're likely to use as our ligaments, obviously much denser and more permanent. So, thank you everyone. The project is going to be continuing on next semester, and then hopefully for the future as well. We still need assistance once we get some of the more materials that we're going to be working with, some of the more specific materials we hope to work with. We're going to need a lot of help, so please contact us if you're interested. Thank you.